Yeah, it is. Good stuff. Now to our cover story, which Julia Gillard and I suspect John Howard are going to be keenly watching today. We all know that industrial relations and the role of the unions is going to be a huge issue in the coming election. That's been flagged. The government and the employer groups have been hammering away at the dangers of union power. But now comes an extraordinary attack on a major union from within its own ranks. The TWU is the second largest union in Australia. And at issue is whether the union is selling out workers' interests, doing deals that allow bosses to exploit their own workforce. Ross Coulthard has this story.
Sydney Airport 4 days ago. Tony Sheldon, boss of the Transport Workers Union, knows he's got a rough few hours ahead. He's here for a meeting where he'll try to head off a rebellion among his members. Airport workers furious about a deal he signed with a boss. They believe he's sold them down the river and traded away their pay and conditions.
The union we look to support and protect is now the union we've got to protect ourselves against.
We want the transparency returned. We want our union back. We want the Labor Party, Kevin Rudd, find out why this is happening.
But the Union Blue has brought to light a much bigger headache for the union. Today, officials from within Sheldon's own circle raise their concerns about a shadowy fund the union has operated for over a decade. Employers have paid millions of dollars into it, but until very recently, few union members knew much, if anything, about it. The lack of transparency is making some union staff question if industrial peace has been put up for sale.
My concerns are that some employees who contribute very significant amounts of this fund are given preferential treatment.
I emphatically deny that.
But it's a perception shared by the biggest employer group in the transport industry.
Our biggest concern is that there are some employers who are being overlooked, and this doesn't provide for a level playing field in the industry.
Can you understand why some of your members have developed a perception that there's something improper about this fund because they say they just didn't know the full extent of it?
Of course I can. Of course I can understand that.
We can reveal the union has now begun a formal investigation into the signing of the blue-collar deal. Was the union blinded by the cash when it signed that agreement?
Absolutely not. Reject that assertion completely.
But insiders want an independent investigation into these fund payments. What will you say to those people watching this who say you're betraying the labour movement?
No, I'm not betraying anyone. Something has to change. It's gone on for far too long. These deals have been going on for 10 years and there's a culture. It just seems like a culture of greed in the place. At any cost, get the money. At any cost. We've got to turn that around.
We have sold the farm out from underneath our own members.
That's a very serious allegation to make.
Well, it's simply what has happened.
Betrayal is the only word you could probably use.
Today is an extremely important first step in a campaign about what happens to our families.
The TWU, led by Tony Sheldon, has spearheaded the fight against the work choices reforms. Sheldon's also one of the power brokers of the Labor Party's right-wing faction in New South Wales. Until today, few people, even inside Sheldon's Sydney offices, knew about what's called the Industrial Rights, Training and Education Fund, though its existence has previously been acknowledged. We've obtained these union documents, which reveal that in just a few years, up to 2005, the TWU received nearly $2 million from transport industry companies. This Industrial Rights Fund money is not directly acknowledged anywhere in the union's concise published accounts sent out to members.
When I saw the amount of money that was there, I was concerned. And I was concerned because the companies were contributing to the union. Now, if I'm going to pay someone for something or contribute some sort of money, you know, you're going to want something in return. I never saw it and I never knew about it.
Now that you know about that fund, how important is it for you and your rank and file members to see an explanation for where that money's gone?
It's extremely important. It makes you wonder where the compromise has been. You know, have the members been compromised by the companies paying this money into the union that no one knows where it went?
Yeah, you got it, mate.
Danny Dooley has been a loyal TWU delegate at Sydney Airport for 25 years. What's most angering the 800 ground staff he represents is that in June 2004, a senior TWU official denied rumours that labour hire companies were paying into the union's so-called training funds.
And a question was asked the organiser at the time, does this take place? Is the union taking money off these labour hire companies? And the answer was a resounding no.
So let me be clear about this. When the union was asked about whether these payments were being made, it was denied.
That's correct. Now, I wasn't the person that asked the question, but I was present at that meeting where a gentleman from the floor, one of our rank and file members, asked the question, is the union receiving money from labour hire companies? And the answer was a resounding no.
I can't either confirm or deny that.
But as this TWU financial printout shows, the union was then receiving large sums from labour hire employers.
And Ross, we're not talking about a couple of $100 or a couple of $1,000 here, we're talking about millions.
What do you think about that?
I think it's absolutely reprehensible.
In April this year, Tony Sheldon signed an agreement with a labour hire company called Blue Collar, whose employees at Sydney Airport have previously been paid under the existing award. But that changed with Tony Sheldon's new agreement. According to Danny Dooley, the new pay rates mean workers will now take a big pay cut.
Depending on shifts, how they do it, the rostering of it, they can achieve up to 30% reductions.
There are some, probably 2,000 Qantas ground handlers, and if 40% of them lose their job to blue collar, that's a disaster. That's a disaster for TWU, it's a disaster for those families.
Who needs work choices when you've got the TWU?
It's ridiculous.
We asked the union if we could interview Tony Sheldon, but he wasn't available. Scott Connolly is a sub-branch secretary and the senior official responsible for airlines, including the blue-collar deal.
Obviously, there's some serious concerns about that agreement.
We're
aware of those concerns, and
Why
as
did
I
you
said
sign
to
it?
you, we're conducting an investigation into how that agreement has been signed.
But
and
Tony
the
Sheldon,
process.
can I just check this? Tony Sheldon, the boss of your union, put his signature to an agreement which significantly undercuts the existing Qantas Airport workers' award rates at the airport, doesn't it?
This agreement does not apply to Qantas.
Qantas workers are worried about the deal because they say it's inevitable the airline will push to hire the lower cost blue-collar workers. They just can't understand why a union is cheapening the price of their labour by signing such an agreement. And they're suspicious it has something to do with a second private agreement that the union has signed with Blue Collar. And this side deal, they say, effectively provides a financial incentive to the union if the airline hires blue-collar workers.